What a suave chap. Uber Chad. Very Indo-European garments available at Teespring. And now...
Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. I'm just here with Boris Johnson. We're admiring this Iron-Age hill fort. Now, there's a few of these in this part of the country, in the West Country, Cornwall and Devon. And this one's been built about 2,500 years ago, so 1,000 years after the Bell-Beaker invasions of Britain. And it's around this time that the Celtic languages are entering Britain, we're thinking. That means this is when there must have been some kind of Celtic invasion or increasing trade with the Celts. Now, this was not a peaceful time in the history of Britain, otherwise they wouldn't have needed these forts. We don't know if this was a fort built by the pre-Celtic Britons or by Celtic-speaking Britons, or whether the arrival of Celtic languages in Britain actually changed things that much, whether people just change their language. But people don't often just change their language and culture that easily. There has to be some reason for it, and if it's not from mass immigration, which from the genetics of Britain it doesn't look like there was a mass immigration of Celts, then there must be another reason, and that means there must have been a new elite installed, in my opinion. And for the Celts to install themselves as an elite on the British Isles, there probably had to be some conflict. Anyway, perhaps this was, it's hard to tell, because this could be just after or just before the Celts got here that this was made. So it could have been built by Celts to defend from the natives, or it could have been the natives to try and stop the Celtic invaders, or it could have been completely unrelated to that. It could have just been a way of that people around here defended the local area. Farmland is in the area, probably good tin mining around these parts as well, and tin at that time was traded far and wide. You know, even in the Middle East they were getting their tin from the western part of England. The Phoenicians used to trade in the Bronze Age with Britain to come all the way here to pick up the tin and take it back to the Middle East. This area is quite beautiful. We're up on a promontory looking out all around the surrounding countryside, but they didn't build it here for the views. They built it here for a military defence. You can see it's a rectangular ridge going all the way around, and they've only recently, in the last couple of years, cut down all the trees and made this a scheduled monument so that we can really appreciate it. There's no other function for this needs to be proposed except for the military function. Some people say, how many people lived here? There was definitely round houses here, so it could have been a few people living here, but I don't think personally that this was a main settlement. I expect the surrounding countryside had people scattered across it in little villages and hamlets, but that this was a centre for an aristocratic elite. This was an Indo-European culture after all. And there's also ideas of whether people would take their animals up here as a safe space for them. I don't think that's likely. There's even talk about whether this was a religious enclosure. I don't think that's likely either. It's not necessary. For this wall, this mud wall, was surrounded entirely by a deep ditch. It's still there in parts. And then the actual wall itself was not just mud, it was stone. There was brickwork all around it. But over the past few hundred years, people have been taking those stones away to use for other things. So there's not really much left of it now. That track going through the middle, that's from the 19th century, because this was all covered in forest. They cut down the trees only recently, as I say. I mean, here you can see around it Scandinavian trees, that's the modern timber industry. But even here, oaks on the right-hand side, those probably planted here as well, because for hundreds of years, oak timber farming was a big thing in England. So that's damaged the actual monument itself and made it harder to understand what was going on here. If you understand that this is quite near to the River Torridge, and that flows out into the Bristol Channel, and that you've got, tin mining in the area, very important. This is a westward facing part of the British Isles, so many different peoples could come by sea up the River Torridge, neighbouring tribes within Britain as well. This is a place that needs military fortifications, and Up here, I can see a long way around, and it's really easy to defend, very difficult to attack. This is military, and I don't see the need to propose religious or any other function for it. Another thing, interestingly, is there's no water supply up here. There's no way I'd build a village where there's no water supply. You've got to go all the way down the hill. We just hiked up. There's a river, a little stream actually. That's the nearest water supply. Not very convenient. I mean, obviously the people who did live here and the few roundhouses that were in the enclosure, they obviously had to go and have someone bring that up and down for them. But, you know, if you're going to talk about realistically having a permanent settlement, it's not likely. I mean, I don't think this was even permanently settled, because they've looked here and there's not that much evidence of, you know, all the signs of life. It doesn't seem that this was permanently settled. I expect they probably left it empty a lot of the time, and it was there as a backup that they could run up to when the occasion required it. Now, this was built right at the end of the Bronze Age, just at the beginning of the Iron Age. It's at that, you know, juncture, but actually there was no, you know, clear like major event in history that demarcates them. We just change. We don't say that it was the Iron Age begins when iron is discovered. Iron was used in the Bronze Age too, but just not as much. The Iron Age is one historians say that iron became the dominant metal. So actually, that isn't the significant, you know, event from Bronze Age to Iron Age in any, you know, sense for the people living here. They didn't know that they were at the juncture of two ages. The only major event that happened in the British Isles that I think would happen is the arrival of the Celtic languages. And really, that's quite mysterious still. We're not exactly sure what was going on behind it. But forts like this aren't that different from forts at other times. Bronze Age, they have military forts in parts of Europe that are similar. And obviously this could have been built at the end of the Bronze Age, in fact. But if you look at Anglo-Saxon Motte and Bailey castles, the Norman castle with, you know, made of strong stone, well, it's all basically the same concept. You've got to have something high up, and you've got to have an enclosure, a wall to surround it. You've got to have like the means of preventing a siege starving you out. So you've got to have enough room for some food and water to be stored within. I mean, sometimes there's Roman forts they discover, and they're not certain it's Roman or not until they start digging up and see whether it was a Celtic one or an earlier Iron Age one or what, because the basic concept of defending an area is the same for a long, long time. You find a high place, you build a walled enclosure in it, and you make sure that you can defend it. It's actually strangely peaceful for a military place. Perhaps that's because it was never actually used in any military capacity. But it doesn't feel like a place where great wars have happened.
If you enjoyed this video about Iron Age hill forts, you might also check out my video on Lithuania, because that features this hill fort in the shot, which is from the Iron Age but a bit later than the one in Britain. I also made one about a Swedish vitrified hill fort, which was made using a very unique method. Please subscribe and check out my Facebook, Instagram and Twitter profiles for yet more Indo-European content. Please remember, this channel depends on the donations of generous patrons. If you're kind enough to become a patron and support this channel, you will have access to exclusive content and other rewards. I'm Tom Rousel, and this is Survive the Jive. See you next time.